Show is in Surrey. We return to the water for our final report tonight. Just to the south of Belfast in Northern Ireland is the largest sea inlet in the United Kingdom. It's called Strangford Lough, and every year at Portaferry on the southernmost tip of the loch they hold a regatta for old sailing boats. It's a big event and attracts lots of tourists to the area. But as our next report shows, it was once the setting for a particularly difficult and dangerous rescue. One that involved the Coast Guard, ambulance crews, private boats and even the local Blue Peter lifeboat. Simon Bamford grew up by the loch. He got interested in boating and diving, and always his attention was drawn to an old World War II wreck of an American Liberty ship. For more than 40 years, this hulk of razor-sharp metal has been rusting away in Strangford Lough. It's become a well-known landmark, almost a tourist attraction. But now it means something very different for Simon.
It's just strange. There are times I never really thought I'd get back on again. Didn't know.
Oh my God, my head's bleeding!
If you want to get out of here alive, you better start praying.
The weekend of this regatta, I was actually involved in doing lectures for disabled divers. And I didn't actually get finished until late in the evening. And I launched my boat at White Rock and had to cross the loch to go down to Portaferry. I was at Portaferry. I was going to meet friends, Philip Middleton and Sheila Carlton.
What are you doing out here? Why couldn't you wait for me inside?
Oh, you made it at last?
By the time I got to Portaferry, it was late. And I went into the sailing club and met up with Phil and Sheila. I had my barbecue, we finished it and had a chat. And then we met up with a few other friends.
I saw a Viking in a shop with a shopping bag.
Yeah. We went out to the boat to take them back up to Ballyhenry Bay, to their boat. By this stage, it was very, very dark. We arrived up at their boat, dropped them off. I turned the boat up towards the top of Ballyhenry Bay. By entering Ballyhenry Bay, all the angles changed on all the reference points for navigation. When I entered the bay, I didn't realize we were quite so far up. I turned the boat up towards the top of the bay to cross the loch where Phil, Sheila and myself were going to stay for the night. Popped the boat up in the plane and eased it right back. And believing it was in clear water, I looked down at the instruments to set up the engine trim. I'd just done that. I looked up again and the wreck was directly in front of us. I put the boat hard over to port and slammed the engine into reverse. My immediate thought to myself was, this one's really going to hurt. Which it did.
The boat was catapulted into the air and landed on the wreck. All three people were flung out. Phil and Sheila landed on the deck, but Simon was thrown into the water. His leg was badly broken, and he was losing a lot of blood.
I remember hitting the water, thinking, I'm really going down. I better do something about this and come up again. I swam back to the wreck and held onto the side, started calling and see how the others were. Could hear Sheila. She's in a bit of pain.
Phil? Phil?
Called to Phil. He's calling to me. He asked me to get out of the water. I told him I couldn't. There's something wrong with my left leg. It just didn't work.
Phil! What do I do?
My left leg's gone. Simon, can you get out of the water?
I can't pull myself up. Try sending a mayday.
Help me!
I knew I'd hurt my legs. I couldn't feel anything in them. And I could see that there was blood around me, and I knew I'd hurt the back of my head. And I could see the boat was sitting on top of the wreck. And then I could see or hear Phil crawling down to the boat.
The nearest land was only a few hundred yards away, but they were too badly hurt to swim through the strong currents and freezing water. The only way to get help was to send a mayday on the boat's radio.
Where's the radio? Did you fit the radio?
Yeah, it's fitted.
It's not here.
Look for it.
I can't find it.
The radio had also been thrown out of the boat by the force of the collision. They had to find it quickly, but then Simon had his first piece of luck.
Phil! I got it! Right.
He picked up the power lead for it, jammed it in, hit the button, and the wee red light came on. The radio works great, happy days, you know. Things are going to be okay.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. Belfast Coast Guard, Belfast Coast Guard.
And we didn't get anything back at all. So Phil grabbed the lead in his teeth and bit away at it and chewed off until he got the centre core of the aerial lead. Just jammed it into the aerial socket on the boat. Tried again, put out the mayday signal.
Mayday, mayday, mayday. Belfast Coast Guard, Belfast Coast Guard.
This is Belfast Coast Guard. Ambulance control, we have an offshore incident in Strangford Loch.
We've had a high-speed inflatable hit a wreck in the loch doing about 40 knots.
The Coast Guard put out a general alert. The nearest ambulance was at Newton Ards.
I knew that I was getting weaker. The current was increasing. You know, things were going to start getting difficult to get out of the water if I didn't do something about it. So I swam towards the stern of the boat, started to crawl up the deck plates. At this stage, my leg, I knew it was well and truly broken because when I turned around, it faced down. I'm back at an absolutely crazy angle where it shouldn't be. So I turned around and sort of straightened the leg out a wee bit. And then it was the weight. And then the pain really sort of went bang. You'd nothing more to do. I'd done all I could to save myself. And the same with Phil. As soon as he got the mayday across, bang, the pain came. You'd nothing to do. You had to wait. It's up to somebody else now, unfortunately.
While they waited, other boats headed for the wreck, including the Portaferry lifeboat.
When I arrived at Lee's wreck, couldn't believe it. You know, when I stepped onto the wreck, it was like stepping into a car traffic accident. There's bodies lying everywhere, groaning. First thing I thought was, you know, what do I do first? Done all the first aid courses you can do. Nothing prepared me for that.
It's the first time I've ever really hurt myself badly. And it crossed my mind, you know, head injuries. Sometimes you hear 1 minute people feel fine, the next minute they just pass away.
Sheila had big gaping holes all around her. If she'd gone down any one of those, she'd have been gone. And I was worried because I knew we could get Sheila and Phil off the wreck. But Simon, because he was on the low side of his own wreck boat, was going to be a problem.
What's his name?
At this stage, I had thought, well, this is a willie job.
put your Wellingtons on and wait over the rocks. But then we were informed that this boat was up on a rack in the middle of Strangford Loch.
What way out there?
Right in the middle of the loch there on our boat there.
My God.
It didn't go down too well with me because I can't swim. So I didn't really relish the idea of going out in this thing. But the adrenaline's flowing, and there's people injured, so you get on with it.
They took whatever gear they could to turn the lifeboat into a makeshift ambulance.
When you have time to think at this stage while you're moving out to the wreck, what am I doing here at this time of the morning? On a blooming boat and I can't swim in the middle of Strangford Loch.
As we approached the wreck, we could see a body, a person that we could see in the middle, seated, leaning under the hull of the boat. I think they were trying to keep his spirits up a bit. And we managed to sort of clamber out of the lifeboat and get aboard the wreck.
I was just so happy to see the lifeboat come back with the paramedics on board. Because then I knew that someone else could take over. Because I will admit, I felt helpless when I first arrived.
Upon examination, we discovered that, in fact, Simon had fractured his left femur, and that is a life-threatening condition on its own, because you can lose almost your complete blood volume into a fractured femur. So we realised then that we would have to act quickly in getting Simon off the boat and to the hospital.
As soon as I started working on my leg, I just freaked out.
That's the worst of it.
They did whatever they did.
Across your chest.
This trolley was actually suspended above the holes that were in the deck of this wreck. Massive holes, some of them.
Watch yourself there. Watch your holes.
With quite a bit of difficulty, we manoeuvred them back over the side of this wreck onto the lifeboat.
Certainly the most extraordinary rescue I've ever been on in 5 years of lifeboating. And hopefully not one we'll ever have to repeat again.
Coast Guard guys are fantastic, and I really was putting my life in their hands, going out in this boat as far as I'm concerned. And I've nothing but regard for those guys, because they really do go out in terrible conditions. And Strangford Loch is a treacherous place, really.
I didn't know the wreck was quite as dangerous as it was. It's full of holes and structures jutting up, which would obviously have been fatal if it landed on top of one. I was very glad that all three of us were just plain lucky.
Sheila was taken to hospital suffering from head injuries, but she was home within a few days. Phil and Simon had to have several operations on their legs. 6 months later, Simon was still on crutches.
At times I never really thought I'd get back on again. But it happened, and that's all there is to it. You can't change the past. I'm lucky to be here.
Don't forget, water safe